Israel reportedly carrying out more strikes in Syria, this time against former Syrian government forces in the largest city in the eastern part of the country. The attacks come after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited troops in the Golan Heights inside the buffer zone between Israel and Syria. Israeli defense forces have moved about 6 miles closer to the border of the territory seized by Israel and Syria, Netanyahu saying they will remain in that buffer zone until, quote, an arrangement is found that guarantees Israel's safety and security. Associate Fellow at King's College, London's International Center for the Study of Radicalisation, Broderick McDonald, joins me now for more. Broderick, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. I do appreciate it. What do you make of Israel's ramping up its attacks in Syria right now?
Yeah, it's a real concern. There's going to be a security vacuum in the east of the country, and we know that IS will exploit this to the fullest extent that it can. They've already talked about this in the past, and they've always tried to attack both prison camps and detention facilities where IS members have been in prison for many years as they try to rebuild their ranks. And I think that any further fighting, either within Syria or from external countries, is going to contribute to that and allow IS to really expand its operations and ramp up attacks, which are already at a 3-year high.
Broderick, the head of HTS, who you are familiar with, the party now in charge of Syria, has criticized Israel's military presence in this buffer zone. He says overthrowing Bashar al-Assad's regime is a threat from Hezbollah and other Iranian-backed military makes it an issue in this zone. Currently, no timetable for a withdrawal. So what is Israel's strategy here, and what kind of impact could this have on the transition of power?
I think it's a big question to see what the new government in Damascus does. Now, it has moved in a more pragmatic and local direction. Israel is concerned that it will, be more true to its old past back in the early days of the Syrian civil war, where Jalani led the al-Nusra Front. We don't know exactly what will happen yet. But I would say that as Israel is looking at the security situation, they also need to think about what kind of relationship they want to have with this new government in Damascus, which will include other factions from the Syrian National Army, from civil society, from groups in the south. And what kind of a start of this new relationship do they want to have as Syria rebuilds after 14 years of brutal civil war and really tries to start, a new country with new leadership, with new direction, with new optimism for the future? Strikes against the country and ground incursions make that process much, much more complicated. And we are at a historic moment in Syria's future going forward.
Broderick, I'm curious, where does the current situation in Syria leave Turkey and the U.S., and how important is it to calm tensions right now?
Yeah, it's extremely important. We see continued tensions and even clashes between Turkish-backed SNA forces in the east of the country and the U.S.-supported Syrian Democratic Forces. This is the Kurdish groups and factions that have been, controlling most of the eastern part of the country for the past several years. As these clashes continue, there's a real risk that the SDF, which is guarding some of these IS detention facilities in the east of the country, will have to divert resources to other areas. And there's real danger that IS can exploit this and take advantage of that security vacuum. So I think U.S. diplomacy, which is already at work right now, will be critical in calming some of those tensions and finding a peaceful solution forward that can control, both the IS camps and ensure that they maintain, stability and safety there, and hopefully calm any further fighting so Syria doesn't see future rounds of political violence.
Right, and there's a delicate balance here, as you know too well. We've seen the celebrations, the rebels handing over Timmermans, certainly saying the right things, but National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says he's concerned about the rebel group's ties to terrorist organizations. So how do you see this playing out in the coming days and weeks?
The group that's in control now, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, has a really long history, and it's changed quite a bit over the past few years. But there's no denying that its leader, Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, has deep roots in the Salafi jihadist movement, right? He was a foreign fighter in 2003. He went and fought with al-Qaeda, later was dispatched by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi personally to go and create or lead an IS cell in Syria at the beginning of the Syrian civil war. And while since that time he has broken with both of those groups and tried to be more pragmatic, tried to be more locally focused, there's still questions from Syrians about how this group will govern over minorities, over other parts of civil society that have been concerned about its rule. And then some of the hardliners within HTS, which have diluted in the past few years, but there are still some, particularly in the special forces operations, the Red Brigades, and others. These are members who have been with Jawlani since the al-Nusra days, and I think we have concerns about those members in particular. But we're hopeful that this organization has changed, and this is meaningful change, and we're hopeful that they can form a unity government in Damascus that brings in Syrian National Army, smaller groups in the south, and really all parts of Syrian society to form an inclusive government going forward.
Yeah, and the world watching on with, I guess, cautious optimism. Associate Fellow at King's College London's International Center for the Study of Radicalization, Broderick McDonald, thanks so much as always. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.